Hi, my name is Drew Russell, and I'm a developer advocate here at Rubrik. Today I'm going to spend a few minutes reviewing our Go SDK. So if you go out to our GitHub repo page and take a look at the README, there's a couple of pieces of information here for you. First and foremost, we have some quick instructions on how to install the SDK through the Go Git tool. Then we have a link to our full documentation set, as well as a quick start example that walks you through some of the basics of the SDK. Let's run through making a example Git call to the Rubrik cluster. So in this case, we'll want to use the, not surprisingly, Git function, which will take the API version and API endpoint as variables. You can also actually specify a timeout value here. Once we connect to the Rubrik cluster, the Git function will return a interface for us. In this case, we're going to want to retrieve the Rubrik cluster version, which we can use the version 1 cluster/ID endpoint. And in this case, the ID parameter is just going to be me. So let's move over to an example Go script here and take a look on how exactly we'll make that call. So first and foremost, we want to import the Go SDK, which we would have installed through that Go Git command. And then we want to instantiate a new API HTTP client using the Rubrik CDM connect env function. So by default, the connect env function will try to pull in the relevant Rubrik cluster credentials through these environment variables. So we'll need the Rubrik cluster node IP, username, and then password. And then from there, we can start making various calls from that Rubrik variable. So like we said, in this case, we're going to use Git to make a call to the version 1 cluster/me endpoint. And let's take a quick look at what that looks like here. So as you can see, we're returning a map with the various pieces of information for the cluster. And we want to pull the version specifically in this case. So we know it returns an interface and we know it returns a map, but just to be sure, let's take a look at what exactly is being returned here. So I will comment that out and rerun this. So in this case, you can see we're getting a map string interface. So we can use that information to pull that specific cluster version. So we'll call the cluster summary variable, tell Go it is a map string interface, and then tell it we want to pull the specific cluster version. So if we execute this again, we will get that 4.2.0 Rubrik CDM version. Now with this, we can also do different things like a post, a patch, or a delete, but ideally we have a function in place for you that you don't need to know the API version or the API endpoint or how to parse that information. So in this case, we can call the Rubrik cluster version function instead, which will simplify that entire process for us. So let's execute the main.go file again. And as you can see, we'll make the same connection, but in this case, you don't have to provide all of the endpoint details. We'll take care of that for you and then return the Rubrik CDM version.